Will, I'm interested in 9/11 for you. Just yeah, what'd you have on it? And of course, it's kind of interesting today, right? That like you grew up in this war and now you're reporting against it. I
Right.
think it would probably be hard to imagine for little William Porter on 9/11 saying they're probably in elementary school classroom, imagining he's going to be reporting on the war that starts in a month.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, you just did such a fantastic job outlining just all the various ways that, like, just all, like, there's so many different repercussions and different ways this has affected our society, and, just endless ways. However, yeah, just to get into more sort of my personal, experience and memories with this, I believe I was 8 years old the day of the 9/11 attacks. And I do remember exactly where I was when I first heard and saw, the towers and stuff. um Throughout the day, I remember kids had been being parents were pulling their kids out of class, and so like it seemed like something weird was going on. There was some sense that like some weird, something was happening. But I was 8 at the time, and I remember thinking that it had something to do with the West Nile virus for some reason. Like that was the theory that my 8-year-old brain came up with, was there was a swarm of mosquitoes that carrying the West Nile, and that's why everyone was being pulled out of class. But I was not pulled out of class. But when I got home from school that day, I immediately did see the images of the collapsing towers on TV. And honestly, I don't really remember what like my parents or my teachers or like the elders in my life like told me about this. I don't really remember how they tried to explain this to me as a little kid. Um, However, I do recall just like the endless media coverage and this new war on terror that came after. And even like at that young age, at some point, I did realize there was some like level of hype that was driving this. And I just remember like being kind of annoyed that like every time I turned on the TV, it was just nothing nonstop and nothing but the war on terror, and all this stuff. So I do kind of recall being a little skeptical of it even when I was really young. But it was around the age of 13 when I saw this documentary. I guess if that's what you want to call it, this film called Zeitgeist, and that was sort of one of the OG like 9/11 conspiracy movies, and that sent me down this big crazy rabbit hole through the conspiracy world. I spent a lot of my teen years like being a 9/11 truther and being into all the inside job stuff. Um, and nowadays, I am far less confident about a lot of the things I used to believe. I think I had bought into some things that maybe I couldn't have proved. I can't prove now. Clearly, there were some very shady things surrounding the attacks, like whether it's the role of Saudi royals in funding and planning the attacks, as is seen in the 28 pages, or even like the weird places that like Israeli intelligence seems to keep popping up in relation to the plot, like Justin Raimondo and Ryan Dawson have shown in their work. So there is, and also I'm sure our
Can
listeners
I
are
add,
familiar. Oh, go ahead.
just there's a great article today at antiwar.com by Ray McGovern going through some of the intelligence failures and just all like this could have like there were a lot of ways 9/11 could have been prevented.
Yeah,
Colin Rowley was very interested in investigating the people in Minnesota. There was an agent that almost busted the guys in Arizona, I think, or New Mexico, somewhere in the Southwest. It might have even been San Diego.
yeah,
And then there was recommendations from like 1988 through 1998 from the FAA to put lots on the doors to the cockpit. They found time and time again that this was like an issue that could easily be prevented with some relatively cheap lots, and they just didn't reform that. I think
right.
even that David Tennant had been warned, and like whenever 9/11 happened, he was like, oh, it happened that way. And
Right.
then there were some like listening posts, I think in Yemen was where they were trying to listen to conversations too. And
Yes.
because the NSA and CIA are just so idiotic, I don't even know what the correct word is to
Yeah, stubborn,
describe
I guess.
stubborn, idiotic, just so concerned about their own budget over the security of the American people that they don't
Yeah.
like to share intelligence. And they end up only recording half of the conversation, and it all if they had the whole thing, I think Ali Soufan thinks they would have been able to stop it, right? I think they brought Ali Soufan in Yemen on the day, and he was like, oh
Yeah.
my god, this is everything we needed.
Yeah, and
um
Michael Scheuer, the former the head of the CIA's Bin Laden unit, Alex Station, he tells this whole story, and he's like spitting mad about it that the other intelligence agencies refused to cooperate with the CIA to get these important communications that could have potentially stopped the attacks.
And then there's one other thing that Ray McGovern points out in his article that I think is really important, and that's there were two guys in the U.S. who were very suspicious, but the CIA didn't pass that information on to the FBI, and McGovern thinks that they were trying to basically flip these guys. And so right. It's kind of curious maybe how much contact the CIA had with them, and maybe they got played, had a little Oklahoma City go down on them, where essentially they, just get drug along by the informants, and the informants are able to pull out the attack right on the nose of the feds. I think that's entirely possible. But Will, I interrupted your thing. Go ahead.
No, you're all good. Like, that was all very important stuff. Like, there's a very big list of things for why people might, be skeptical about the 9/11 attacks that don't make you a conspiracy kook. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with the whole dancing Israelis thing, which is all very weird. There's just a lot of like strange stuff that I think remains unexplained to this day. And so, like, my point is just sort of that 9/11 was very pivotal for me. It was the first kind of major thing where I was like, exposed to the idea that the government might lie or cover things up on like a massive scale. And even if some of the things that I thought they lied or covered up, like I now believe now, like I was probably wrong about, still it was very influential for me in just like thinking this way. So like, even though I've kind of dropped some of the more kooky stuff, it did instill this great skepticism in government in me that I think is that's kind of led me into doing this kind of stuff I do now. But I think along the way, like, from going from this whole conspiracy kind of world to the journalism world, I kind of picked up a better understanding of like sourcing and backing up your claims and, proving what you have to say. Because like, I think people like us, like anti-war, anti-establishment types, like we face a more uphill battle. Like we really have to be extra careful with our sources. We have to be extra solid. And I think that is kind of the lesson I learned with, going from this conspiracy stuff into journalism. And that all started for me with 9/11 and, trying to investigate what might have happened there and whether our government was covering it up. So, of course, 9/11 had this incredible effect, kicking off the war on terror. It had this huge society-wide effect that's affected, millions and millions of people. But for me, that was sort of my personal relation to the attacks. It kind of like sent me into this whole world of, of just being curious about U.S. policy and what we're doing overseas and militant groups and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I gotta say, I that last part, it really has driven me. The lies I was told and the impact it had on me and what it made me believe has really driven me to be, so passionate about this subject. How evil these people are, truly evil to make people so hateful and to make people okay with killing so many innocent people on the other side of the world just for your own profits. Because that was, the only winners of these wars has been the military-industrial complex. Will, the last thing I had to say on this is, of course, now that the war in Afghanistan is over, I think there maybe is a real opportunity for some natural pressure to repeal the 2001-2002 authorization for use of military force laws. That's not going to fix this problem. I don't think that, but at least it is like better to have those off the books. And Absolutely. Then to close Gitmo, I would say are the two things that maybe getting rid of the USA Freedom Act, although I think that's probably more of an uphill battle, in relation to ending 9/11. But certainly I think the other two may be things that could really be pushed for as the war's now over. Like, how are you going to keep your torture prison over for it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I would add to that, and this is of course not likely, but is abolishing the DHS. There's absolutely no damn reason we need a Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, and TSA, they haven't prevented an attack yet, so
that's right. Really, all the damn 17 intelligence agencies. What are they worth?